to the Bayview Podcast with hosts Andrew Clark and Chris Emery. This is designed to be a discussion on all things life and faith. We hope this serves as a weekly resource and encouragement to you.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bayview Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew, joined, as always, by Mr. Chris Emery. How are you?
Hello. I'm good, man. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. Good to have you with us. So, yeah, I'm good. You know, it's, it's March Madness week, right?
Let's go. Yep.
Pretty
Can't
excited
wait.
about it. Yeah. Yeah, I love this week. And I know here at the staff level here at Bayview, we've got all of our brackets handed out. So there's a big bracket. Who won last year? I can't remember who ended up winning last year.
It wasn't Rainey. It wasn't Nicole.
I can't remember.
Brock, did you win?
I can't remember who won last year. I know that there was a lot. I mean, as with every
It was
poll,
super close to like the Final Four. And
yeah,
then
because
it knocked a bunch of people
yeah,
out.
a bunch of upsets and yeah. Anyway, obviously it wasn't that big a deal, but it's always fun. Yeah,
Dude, okay, real quick. I didn't tell you about this off air because I want to talk to you on air about it.
Oh, that is never a good way
You're
to
welcome.
start a story.
No, it's so fitting to the wilderness.
All right,
The series we've been in on Sundays, the
Yeah.
wilderness. I had a guy message a group of us a song by the OC Supertones
No way.
called The Wilderness.
Are you serious?
It's incredible, and we probably should have used it as our sermon bumper.
Come on, how do we miss that?
I know. Do you know the Supertones? You're from California, so you know the
totally.
Supertones.
I know the OC Supertones, absolutely.
And I randomly met them when I was like 8. My dad was speaking at some camp that they were at, or like some like event thing, and I don't remember names or anything, but the song The Wilderness, look it up. It's from
Dude.
2000.
Come on.
But it is like, it's so perfect. So we're going to switch up the bumper for Sunday. Anyways, but that was, I just want to share that with you because I figured you knew who the Supertones were, which like a ska band basically is how you probably describe them. Big band.
Are we going to get flagged if we play this on air right now? I just looked it up on Spotify. I'll listen to it later.
Can we put the link in the bio?
All right,
it's
there we
clean.
go.
They're a Christian band. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah,
they're awesome.
So it's funny because I actually did a couple events with the Supertones
Sure, yeah.
where I was the speaker, and I mean, not that I know them, but
Yep.
I got to hang out with them a little bit. Yeah, they were some wild and crazy dudes, man.
Yeah. Like big band ska sound is kind of their thing.
Yeah, total ska. In fact, they
And-
were the ones that kind of brought ska to the Christian mainstream. And if you don't know what ska is, I guess Wikipedia, go look it up. But basically, it's a kind of a rock punk vibe
Big
with
horns.
a lot of horns, with a lot
Yep.
of wind instruments, trumpets, trombones, and
It's so fun.
super high energy.
Yep. And yeah, they wrote a song called The Wilderness, and it's
Wow.
it talks about like, have you ever felt like you're in the middle of Egypt and Canaan, and like it's got all the stuff of like, have you ever asked these questions? Dude, it was so fitting.
The only challenge is, and we've dealt with this with other sermon bumpers. If you're listening, you don't know what a sermon bumper is. It is basically the little short minute-ish video introduction to the sermon series that one sets the sermon series up each week and also allows for the transition of band to get off stage, speaker to find their way to their spot, and it's video and music. But here's my thought is that there's been times since you've been here even where the sermon bumper had such big upbeat music. It felt weird.
Yeah.
So we go from worship, prayer.
This would be wild.
Thanks for worshiping with us. You can have a seat.
And then it's trumpets.
Boom! Ska comes blasting you out of your eardrums.
It wouldn't fit, but it was so funny. Shout out Tim Rooks and those guys. Like, he sent it to me. He's like,
Is that who found it?
He's like, dude, I saw it, and it was like, I like threw it on real quick, and I'm like, it is perfect. Like, just the meaning of the song, like the lyrics.
Right now,
It's
the
the wilderness.
Supertones Spotify search engine is spiking
gonna
because
blow
people
up.
are like, no way. Anyway, yeah, you're welcome,
So good.
everybody. You're welcome.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was my little, yeah. But that's what the series has been, is the wilderness, and I hope it's been good for people. I say that every time, but I think this last week talking about what are you carrying? What's the baggage?
Yeah.
And that you get to preach on this. Like, what's the baggage that you've brought with you? Maybe knowingly, unknowingly. Like, what's the stuff that you've brought into the wilderness with you? And a lot of times, that's the stuff that we have to get at, or God wants to get at, is what is it there that's,
And sometimes, I mean, and I think that's a good way to look at it. Sometimes it's knowingly, sometimes it's unknowingly.
Yeah.
I would dare say, I don't know what your thoughts are. It's probably more of the time unknowingly.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
'Cause I don't think any of us want baggage.
Yeah, and I always thought, I looked at it from a standpoint of like, sometimes baggage that you've brought is like, stuff that was done to you, past trauma, grief, some of that. And where it's like, maybe for a lot of us, like we feel like, well, I've dealt with that.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're in the wilderness, you're in this space of like, but you just kind of feel like you're wandering, feel like, okay, where's God? I'm in the middle of, between Egypt and Canaan. Like I'm trying to find, I know there's going to be an end, but also that's where that stuff rears its head. It's that thought of like, I thought I was over this.
Yeah. And the wilderness may have nothing to do with your baggage. Yeah. But when you're in the wilderness, you're weak, you're tired. Yeah. It's more difficult, and that's when the baggage gets heavy. Yeah. And I think Sunday I kind of talked about backpacking. That I don't do it. Yep. But my brother does. My brother seriously, like they will pack it up and they'll go disappear days into the woods, which just sounds awful to me. I love the beauty of the woods, but let's drive in, let's park. Let me unlock my cabin and look out through the windows. So
I respect that.
Yeah. But he talks a lot about how it's the weight, and I think in terms of what we're talking about when we're going through some of those difficult times, it's the weight of what we've carried and been carrying. Yeah. And I talked with somebody this week that really came to a big epiphany as we've talked through this wilderness series. And this person finally, I don't know if it admitted it to them. I think it was the first time they really said the words, and then admitted to me something they'd been carrying for over 30 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And we're like, they're like, I've never told anybody this. For 30 years they've been carrying this. Yeah. And it was such a big moment for them that they accepted our offer of finding counseling for them.
Wow, that's awesome.
And help, but man, can you imagine? And I think that's for some, not that we've all been carrying something, but I think the unknowing baggage we carry, it gets heavy, but because maybe it's a little bit at a time, we forget the weight and it just becomes our normal.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that wasn't really that's not the intent of what God is offering us through Jesus Christ.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. I just always pictured, I took a group of teens into the Porcupine Mountains backpacking.
Okay.
And not only had I to carry my pack, but I felt like there was like multiple packs I had to carry for others. And I'm like, I don't want your baggage.
I don't want your baggage.
And please don't run off that mountainside. But and I think about it too, though. The beginning, you don't even, if you've suited up right, if you've packed the bag the right way, right, and you've strapped it on the right way, you don't really feel it initially. Mm-hmm. And that's what I kept thinking of, was talking about what you're carrying. It's like, that's why sometimes it feels like it comes out of nowhere. And you're like, oh, I've been wearing it the whole time. Yeah. I've just gotten used to it. Sure, I've gotten comfortable with it. Totally. Like maybe I did deal with it and I've packaged it the right way so it fits and I know how to like carry it. And then all of a sudden it's like when you start to break down, you get weak, you've been in it for too long. All of a sudden now your awareness to it becomes way more aggressive and knowing. And then it's like, okay, what do I do with this? Yeah.
And the longer it goes, the greater, I mean, not to oversimplify it, but I think we take a variety of topics, whether it's, baggage resulting from my poor decisions or my life choices, baggage resulting from what people have done to me or not done for me, baggage that results from just life letdowns, like unresolved dreams and whatever it may be. I think you take it all together. I think for a lot of people there is a general heart baggage place of just kind of, I'm just disappointed in what my life has become or where my life is. It wasn't supposed to be this way, or I didn't expect it to go this way, and I think there's a lot of that. I think there's people that maybe they've experienced loss way too early. I mean, not to keep, coming back and defining you by this, but I mean, that is something you had the opportunity to do. You should not have lost your father at the age you lost your father. Yeah, sure. And so you had the opportunity to be like, okay, God, I'm disappointed in you because you didn't stop this, or you didn't fix this, or I think that's where a lot of us go, is we're like, are we content with what God is doing or not?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good word, content.
Yeah.
Like, just that, like, And it's like what we've been saying. I think we said it a couple of times already in this series. Like, do I trust what God's doing?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about that in the coming weeks, the perspective and where God is in all this. But like, yeah, do I trust Him in this moment that like when He says like let it go, or He says give it to me, even like do I actually believe He's going to take it?
Yeah.
Again, back to that Porcupine Mountain trip, there was a student who showed up with a roller suitcase. And I was like, honey, you can't take that in the trail. And we had to disperse their items amongst a handful of us to carry her stuff. But it's like, some of us, I feel like we bring the roller suitcase and we're dragging it through the wilderness being like, man, I really wish someone would help me with this.
My God.
But we won't let go of it.
Yeah.
Or we won't let God have it.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the big part of contentment is saying, okay, God, I do trust you. Like, I'm going to be okay in this.
So let's say somebody's listening and they're ready to go they don't want baggage. None of us want baggage. What would you say is one or some of the most common reasons why people just cannot get free from their baggage?
I think the big one, if we're honest, is the fear it's going to happen again anyways.
Okay.
Like, I do think that's a huge thing.
So self-preservation.
Self-preservation. It's like, I've made it this far. I'll keep going. And as soon as I get rid of this, something else is going to happen anyways.
Yeah.
I think it's a real thing for people.
Yeah, because you begin to live with this glass half full mentality of like, if I don't expect too much, I'm not going to be disappointed and let down again.
Yep.
And so I'm going to assume the worst, expect the worst, plan for the worst,
Yep.
see the worst, and there becomes this. Really, what that is that's this baggage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big part
of
of
shoving rocks in your backpack.
It really kind of is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's throwing heavy weight back there. You think I think there's some people that I go back to like maybe some disagreements my wife and I have had, and there have been a couple times where I've been very frustrated or irritated, or frankly just maybe mad at something. I've brought it to her attention, and she owns it immediately and apologizes right away.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there and I'm thinking to myself, like, wait a second, I'm not done being mad yet.
Yeah, you lawyered up. You're ready to fight.
I was prepared for a lot more than what that just was.
Yep.
And it's like, there's part of me, it's like, wait a second, but this sounds so weird, but I think I want to be mad a little longer.
Yeah.
Like this really bothered me, so let me be angry. Why you're making it better too fast? Yeah. And it sounds crazy, but I think there are some people, they don't know how to not be angry at life, angry at the world, or frankly, angry at God.
Yeah.
And they're just not done being mad yet.
Yeah. You've taken a disposition that you've just gotten used to, and I want to keep it this way.
Yeah.
Probably because I think of when I've spoken a couple of messages at camps to like teenagers, and I talk about wearing a mask, and almost like the issue with the mask that we put on, like the funny guy, the mean guy, the whatever, like you feel in the Mr. Fix-It, Mr. Popular, like that mask. It's like you almost have to get, if you're not willing to take it off and give it to Jesus, like you have to get comfortable wearing it, because you're probably going to build a lot of your relationship life around that mask you wear. Very true. And the issue is then now all of a sudden it becomes, well, if I take this off, what does it all fall apart? Right? And it's like that's almost what we do with I think what you're saying with our disposition or choices we make of like, I've come this far being this way, and you're telling me like it doesn't have to be this way. Yeah. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean everything else crumbles behind me? Yeah. And that's scary. I think fear plays a big role in our baggage.
Fear plays a huge. I think fear plays a huge role in probably a lot of what we deal with, for sure. Yeah. And I'm sure there's fear of revisiting the pain, fear of digging up the past, fear of confronting how have I contributed to this. Yeah. So fear of getting caught or being exposed. Yeah. I just think there's so many things that we bring into play, and I gotta imagine there's times that God looks down at us as His children, and He sees us carrying the baggage that He never intended us to carry. And as a father, I'm trying to think through the filter of like, we're both dads, of like, if we're watching our kids struggle with something that they were never supposed to struggle with. Yeah. and we're offering them to let it go. I think I referred to this before, maybe in a message. This is before your time. Your dad probably would have known of this book, but back when us old dudes were youth pastors, there was a book of youth pastor illustrations for the internet.
Could you use the copy machine?
You
and,
could,
make
but it was
cut 'em
stories
out?
you could use for your message.
Yeah.
It was more things you could use for
I
your
remember my dad doing a
message.
ton of clip art, but like real, actual cut out the image and
we would do that. I'm sure your dad,
photocopy
like
it.
me, sometimes we were doing that so we could put it on the overhead projector.
Yeah, for sure.
Big
No,
days,
I'm there.
Big days, yeah. But this book was just a cool book of it had themes and topics, and then you go and find these really cool stories.
Oh, okay, yep.
That you use toward your sermon illustration. And so there was a story I used more than once and kind of fits in here, and that is the story of a dad watching his toddler son playing in a sandbox. And as he digs in the sandbox, he comes across this large rock. And he doesn't want the rock in the sandbox, so he digs around it, rock stays put. Tries to roll the rock out, cannot budge the rock. Pushes it with his feet. Everything he can do. And the dad is watching his son just struggle and wrestle with this rock. And at one point, finally, the dad goes over and says, "Son, are you using all of the strength available to you to move this rock?" And through tears and frustration, the little boy's like, "Yes, I am, Daddy. I'm doing everything in my power." He's like, "That's not what I asked." And with that, he says he reaches down and he, with one hand, easily picks the rock up and tosses it out of the sandbox.
Dude, that's a great illustration.
Isn't that a good illustration?
Yep.
So, anyway. And I think that's maybe so much of what's happening with some of us is that God, he's not enjoying watching us struggle. Mm-hmm. So if you're he's not enjoying that. Yeah. But he wants you to come to some awareness. This is place of are you using all the strength available to you?
Yeah.
Not all the strength they have.
Yeah.
But then the ease of and that's, Jesus says, listen, come to me, all you who are tired and weary. Yep. Throw your burdens on me. The burden I give you is so light. What I'm going to ask of you is so light in compared to this baggage.
Yeah. So the call to come to the end of yourself. Are you
exactly.
done?
Exactly.
Just owning, and that's okay. I think that's, again, the ego, the fear is well, if I can't do it, I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
And it's it's kind of why you need a savior. You can't do it.
You can't. Exactly. You were never going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So there's a word that I want us to break down briefly. Then we talked about it Sunday. It comes from 2 Corinthians 10:3 and 4. It says, "We are human, but we do not wage war as humans do. We use God's mighty weapons, not worldly weapons, to knock down the strongholds of human reasoning and to destroy false arguments."
Yeah.
Now, the application of that can be used to say, hey, this is how we defend truth. But I read that and I think, all right, strongholds of human reasoning and to destroy false arguments. I think that, to me, I also hear those are all the lies I tell myself.
Yeah, dude, 100%.
Those are all the things, all the lies Satan is convincing me of
Yep.
that are contributing to the strongholds. And I think there's a lot of people that the freedom that is available to them is sitting there ready and waiting. It's on the other side of a stronghold.
Yep.
And that stronghold is this baggage.
Yeah.
And the grip we have or the clutch we have on it.
Yeah.
And so when you hear that, we use God's mighty weapons, not worldly weapons. What do you read that, or what do you hear that saying to us?
My initial thing is what we've already said of just are you using everything that's given to you? So using God's strength, using His power, His might. So it's, for us, that would mean is it stuff that you've actually prayed about and given to Him?
Yeah.
Are you willing to step aside and let it be actually worked on by Him? Essentially a stronghold, there's something protecting it.
Yeah.
Right? So if you kind of open the door to the strongholds, that you got to come inside and actually fix this.
Yeah. I hear the word stronghold, I think of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. And
in the third movie, Return of the King, they're under attack and they retreat into, is it Helm's Deep? Helm's Deep, right? Yep. Because that's the stronghold. That's the innermost place where nothing can get to you. And I think for a lot of us, baggage finds its way into our deepest keep.
Yep.
It's so deeply buried. And I think human reasoning and false arguments, the lies, they keep it there. But man, just saying, okay, God, I think it was Psalm 139 I referred to, of saying, search my heart, O God, reveal anything in me that is unpleasing to you. And I think that's where we go, saying, God, know my heart, test me, and know my anxious thoughts. I think that's the first step. Is like, okay, God, take whatever, come and expose it. I'm saying, I'm willing.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Yeah.
I this could hurt, and guys, it could hurt. And here's the deal: it could also take you to a place like the individual I spoke with this week, where you recognize you can't do this on your own.
Mm.
You may need to get some help. We're happy to help you find that.
Yep.
But you are just experiencing the smallest portion of what God wants to do.
Yeah.
By carrying this baggage.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's where the wilderness is so. Again, part of the key to it, if it can be such a refining time, like it can be the time where you can like leave that, whatever you're carrying, leave it in the wilderness, just leave it behind. Like it can just stay there.
Yeah.
But I think there is something to like, are you willing to let it go?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I don't know. That's.
You say leave it there. I think of pictures and documentaries I've watched on the original Woodstock.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen any of the documentaries or stuff on it, but the state of the fields when everybody left, it was insane.
Yeah.
What all was left there.
Kind of gross.
It was super gross. It was just a filthy, unsanitary. You could probably catch anything you want to catch out there. It was just nastiness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, man, if God's people would walk through this wilderness, dropping the baggage, not that this is good for the environmental people, but this is all figurative, not literal.
Yep.
Like it's almost like this field of just nastiness that people have been set free from. And that's the goal, right? That's what God, that's what he wants you to experience. That's what he wants all of us to experience. We don't have to carry our past disappointments, our past failures, our past wounds. We don't have to carry the baggage because it's just not fair. Yep. I think we go back to a lot of those things we talked about. We asked that question, well, what do I expect from God? I think that's an important question for everyone to ask. Honestly, what is it that you expect from God? And if you expect God... If you expect to understand God, if you expect to agree with everything he's doing, if you expect that you deserve something, those are all misplaced expectations. Yeah. Do you expect God to be sovereign? Do you expect God to be good? Yeah. And do you expect God to do what's best for you, even if you don't understand it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just think of like the baggage, personally, like, it was through counseling and through actually dealing with stuff. But, you brought up my dad thing. And it was like there's a big part of me that was like the part of the baggage I was carrying with the loss of my dad was the sense of, could I trust someone again? Like almost like not so much like could I trust my spouse, but like there was this sense of like that father figure or that like an individual who was making a major impact in my life. Could I ever open myself up to something like that again?
Right.
And that was something that was like, I kept going to God being like, well, I'll just figure it out.
Right.
I'll just make it work. And it was, I kept, you talk about what do you expect of God? And it was, I had to be honest with myself. Like, I expect that I would get over this, but it wasn't until it was like a true actual work done to say, okay, I am getting over this. I am going to trust again. I'm going to let this go, to where I felt like God was saying, like, see, I told you. And all of a sudden, like, my eyes were open to all these individuals who were, like, almost there waiting to, like, speak into my life. So, yeah, I think it's just worth it to be real. Again, I think we've never shied away from the fact that God wants you to be real, to ask the questions you want to ask. That's part of being in the wilderness. But then, are you also willing, though, on the other side? I think that's what we're saying here of like, hear and receive, though, what's what's being said, and then letting that stuff go.
Yeah.
And moving forward.
I think that's good. I everything you just said is spot on. Yeah. I think you just got to be real, be honest. I think be real and be honest with God.
Yep.
I mean, I've said this maybe to somebody else, and I think I've heard somebody recently even say they disagree with it. I don't know if they knew I said it or not, but I don't think they knew I had said it. But I've said, listen, even if you need to be mad at God, let that out. He's a big boy; he can take it.
Yep.
I'm not saying curse God. I'm just saying just be what you're saying. Just be real.
Yeah.
Just come to him and be like, I'm hurting. I don't understand. I mean, we actually see that throughout the Psalms, right?
Yep.
We see that. We see David at many times being like, this is the worst.
Yep.
Even, we read out of Micah on this past Sunday where Micah's like, dude, this is all terrible. All the God people are gone. Don't trust your brother. Don't trust your wife, blah, blah, blah. There's something to be said about getting it out, just being real with God.
Yeah.
But then God, like any good father, will probably let you throw your fit until you wear yourself out. And then he's going to come down. He's going to put a gentle hand on you, and he's going to remind you who he is.
Yep. Yeah, I think we've talked about it a bunch on this podcast, but one of my favorite stories is Mary freaking out on God that he didn't, or on Jesus that he didn't show up and heal Lazarus.
Yeah, exactly.
And he allows her to she's pretty upfront. If you would have been here, blah, just going in on him.
100%.
She runs to him, doesn't even let him show up at the house. She runs to him, freaks out. Jesus hears it. Jesus cries with her, is there, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna bring your bro back. It's gonna be okay.
And I've had this plan all along. If you would just trust me on this one.
But he engages with her in the moment.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. God is not afraid of it. He is not worried about you being like, I am scared to let this go. Yeah, he already knows and he understands. And just some of that stuff is just so encouraging to know that we do serve a God who gets it.
Yeah.
And
he wants you to be, I think of, you're not there yet with your kids. It'll be your fast. But I think when my kids start becoming teenagers and several of them went through that stage where they just didn't talk to us much. They kind of got home from school or from sports, wolfed down their dinner, and then disappeared to their bedrooms. And we would get a grunt to how was your day? Brr, I mean, it's just and there's times where my wife and wow, why don't they like us anymore? There were times when they'd be going through something really difficult or something, and they would come to us, and it was full of emotion and sometimes full of anger and not even always rational. But as a dad, this sounds really weird. I didn't care. Yeah. I was just so happy they were running to us. Yeah. That they came to us in their pain. They came to us in their fear or their anxiety. It just spoke to my heart as a father saying, I'm so glad that you're at least coming and trusting me to be real. That's awesome. And I think God is like, listen, I'm here for you. I just touch my heart so deeply. Just come and be real with me. Yeah. And then let's walk through this wilderness. But let's do one thing before we go. Let me reach down and take this big pack off your back. Yeah. I'm going to throw it over my shoulder because it is not that big a deal for me. Yep. And let's go. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's the message of the baggage. Yep. I do. So
100%.
Well, I don't want to pull a Dr. Phil on you, meaning I don't want us to unpack a bunch of deep things and then peace out. So
I respect that.
Right. So I'm going to say this, that we are here for you. If you're listening and you need something, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can find our contact information on our website, bayviewchurch.net. If you feel like you do need to talk to a professional, I would encourage you to find a Christian counselor, not a counselor who's a Christian, but a Christian counselor. And if you are in our area listening, we would be happy to refer you to some of the ones that we trust. Yeah. We have some amazing godly counselors here in Traverse City because sometimes that's a big part of it.
Yep, 100%.
So, hey, thanks for being with us today. I hope you're enjoying this wilderness series as much as we are. I don't know, it's speaking to me. I think it's speaking to all of us as we're digging through this. So we're going to be here each and every week, breaking it back down. If you have not done so, hit like or subscribe in whatever platform you're listening on so you just don't miss an episode. That way you don't have to go search for us all the time. Until then, till next week, it's Andrew, it's Chris. We are out of here, and we'll see you next time around.